I have to admit, friends, that tonight there's going to be a few shocks coming from different directions, depending upon what you know and what you don't know. But you should find it interesting at least. And what I have to reveal to you is all factual. There's going to be no speculations, no opinions in this. We're going to give you facts. And I think you'll be astonished at some of the things that come out. About 20 million Americans claim that they have seen UFOs. The word UFO is short for unidentified flying object. As a matter of fact, 4 million people and more, probably 4.5 million people in America, claim to have been abducted by space aliens or whatever they are. It's a lot of people. Now, 95% of the stories that come prove to be something else, like a weather balloon or some kind of natural lights in the sky or various other things, and they can be explained as man-made or natural phenomenon, about 95% of them. Then there are others that are just made up stories. People get onto the bandwagon and start making up stories to draw attention to themselves, and some are outright lies. But others genuinely believe that they've had experiences. A number of these people are interviewed, and there are organisations set up especially to investigate such things. And these genuine ones do need some explaining. Here is a UFO photographed over Mexico City some time ago. Here's another one over Yugoslavia. And I'm going to tell you tonight, friends, that the explanations are so different that our investigation is going to have to take us only to the truth. We're going to have to sift out the error from the truth, because it can be done. There are those who believe that these phenomena come from outer space. There are others who believe that UFOs are a government technology that is not being revealed, and that there are cover-ups going on. There are others who claim that UFOs come from a civilization inside a hollow earth, that the earth is hollow, that there are civilizations under the earth and they come out. There are others who believe that these are angels appearing. And there are others who believe that the UFO phenomenon is a hangover from the days in the past when there was a high technology. And we dealt with the high technology in our first program, Dead Men's Secrets. That there was a great technology in the past, and that there are still remnants of that somewhere that are appearing to modern people somehow, and that is the explanation. So you'll see there's a lot of different ideas about this. People who claim to be abducted are not few and far between. And these include the most responsible and intelligent and respected people in their communities. They're not just crackpots. Many of them have a strange feeling in their hearts and their bodies, and they don't know what's causing it. And then suddenly they are suggested they go to a hypnotherapist, and they then blurt out a story as though it had just freshly happened to them, something they were not conscious of because their mind had closed it off. And men and women claim these abductions. They claim to have had terrifying experiences with aliens. And most strange reports come out of their stories. Now, it's very interesting that the effect of these so-called encounters, if that's the right word, are both physical and mental. The physical effects include, in a large number of cases, if not the majority of cases, a deteriorating physical health after the event. And people actually dying of diseases that surgeons and the medical profession have not yet been able to identify. Mentally and emotionally, they become controlled by this imagined or real force. And they become possessed, as it were. And they cannot be the same person again after they've gone through it. Many of them actually have broken marriages after this. They report a great interest in the occult that they never had before. And the situation is real when you see the people themselves. Something has happened to them. But whatever that is what we're going to get at tonight. Here we have somebody, some entities that I'm suggesting have questionable origins. And you'll understand that as we go further. The earliest encounters had the UFO people stating that they had come from planets like Venus and other planets of our solar system. That was very, very common before our space program got underway, because their claims could not be checked, of course. As soon as our space program began to probe through the solar system, these UFO entities began to change their story and say they came from galaxies further away that could not be checked on. They no longer said that they came from planets in our solar system, at least not so often. Their story was changed. They came from other galaxies like the Pleiades and so on. One thing that UFO investigators have discovered, friends, and are very open about is this: that these entities, whoever they are, cannot be trusted to tell the truth. And the question arises, do they have something to hide? Yes, they have a clear teaching agenda as well. They come to promote certain things and to attack other things. For example, they promote the New Age movement. They attack Christianity. And they put down Jesus Christ and they put up Lucifer. It's very interesting. They have a clear mind to change the belief of people. I guess unless we know where we're headed and we follow the directions, we're going to end up, friends, in the most unlikely and unexpected places, as that cartoonist put. We need to know where we are and we need to know what's out there. Now, it is true, friends, that what we see around us is not all that there is. One of the most proven facts of modern life is that there are entities that are not human. And the suggestion has been made by investigators that these are coming from a parallel existence, a non-physical existence, a spirit existence, if you like, another dimension other than the physical dimension in which we live. And here you are looking at actual photographs. These are genuine photographs of entities that suddenly appear and materialize in seances. There are 3 appearing around that man, that gentleman. He's physical, as are the people. And yet entities appear and are seen. Now, an interesting thing about the UFO phenomenon is that UFOs can defy all the laws of physics as we know them. A UFO can change direction at a fast speed, 120 degrees. A UFO can change shape. A UFO can actually materialize and dematerialize. 2 UFOs can come together and become one physical item. Now, this is something that we cannot cause to happen in the physical world. If something is in another dimension, it can do that. It simply interferes with the laws that we are familiar with because it's not governed by those laws. And several can come together to become one. That's really way out, isn't it? Manipulation of mass and energy is what we're facing here. And that is what happens in a seance. Manipulation of mass and energy. I'm going to tell you some very intriguing stories a little further down the track. And so what we have, friends, is some people, some entities who are claiming to be from outer space. But they cannot be trusted. That has been proven countless times by UFO investigators, skeptics as well as believers. Actually, the question is often asked, what about the American government and the New Zealand government and all the governments of the world? Why is there a cover-up going on? Why are they so unwilling to discuss these matters with the public? Well, I'll tell you this, friends. If they knew, as I know many of them do, that they're dealing with something beyond our control, if we're dealing with entities that are not governed by the laws that we are familiar with, and that these entities have tremendous powers that we do not have, it would not be surprising for government officials to want to cover this up simply because this is not something we can deal with, and we don't want the public to know that. So who then are these entities? Well, we're going to look at the big picture tonight. It's not by trying to discover who they are that we're going to get the whole story. We're going to find something much bigger than just UFO entities involved in this. And I'm going to take you, without any hesitation, any apology tonight, to what I like to call often the intelligence report. It is known, it is probably the most widely read and widely published book in the whole world. In New Zealand, it's called the Bible. And as you have noted from what I've already said in previous programs, I've given you very straight and hard physical archaeological evidence that that book can be trusted. Its accounts of the past you can believe. Archaeology has come to the side of the Bible. It's the one science that is a proving science, a physical science with things you can touch, things you can smell, things you can see, and things you can test. You can test events by whether the relics of those events actually remain today. And very often this book has been attacked by skeptics, and I was a skeptic, has been attacked by skeptics simply because we as human beings did not have enough evidence. Many a time, stories in that book have been telling of events and places and nations in history that no other history book even mentioned. And so it was thought they were just made up by the writers of the book. But then archaeology came into the picture. For example, the Hittite Empire was said never to have existed because it was only mentioned in the Bible. Now the Hittite Empire is taught through all the schools because we know it did exist. And so many other things that it claimed happened, we have said, no, they couldn't have happened. Yes, friends, these events did happen. You can actually rely upon that book. In fact, as one of the greatest archaeologists of all time, from Johns Hopkins University, said, this book is the most reliable book on history that we possess. Okay, so we're going into this, and I like to call it the intelligence report, friends, because it knows a lot of things you and I don't know. And we're going to see what it says about the UFO phenomenon tonight too. And then we're going to look at evidence of what's happening in the world around us. So why are these aliens so against this book? Because that's one of the things they're attacking. Did you know that these outer space people are attacking this book? Why are they doing it? Because it exposes who they are. There's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on here. The key is in who they are. So we're going to look at the big picture tonight, friends. And we're going to pull back the curtain to the other world, and we're going to see what's going on there and how it affects us. Aliens, the deadly secret. Star Wars. We know that fiction is often a parody of fact. Yes, there has been a Star Wars in the past. And that does raise the question, are there other worlds inhabited? Well, friends, the universe, according to this book, is teeming with life. When science was telling us that this world was the center of the universe and that this is the only world that had life on it, the Bible was saying that the whole universe is teeming with life. And today many scientists are coming to this view that the old book is true on that. And that of all the millions and billions of galaxies, it is mathematically unlikely that this world is the only one that's inhabited. In fact, the book of Hebrews in that book says he made the worlds with all their host, with all their inhabitants. And it also says that these worlds are loyal to their creator. They have purer civilizations than we have on this planet. But they're not coming down to this world. They're not interested in visiting here because this world is in quarantine since a certain event took place. And if you go to the archaeology of all the various races of the earth, going back into the past, and we're looking at some Mexican imagery here, these nations all knew about the ancient Star Wars. Our modern society has forgotten it. I mean, Hollywood makes movies with fantasy on such things, but the actual historical event of a Star Wars was known by all the nations of the earth, including, as we see here tonight, the Mexicans. Now, I want you to be not mistaken about this fact, friends, that there's a physical realm, and you and I are in this physical realm. And there is a spiritual realm, a non-physical realm, which is just as real. The book of Colossians tells us this: by God were all things created that are in heaven and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. So there is an invisible world as well as a visible sphere. We're told that away beyond the Orion galaxy, Orion constellation, away back beyond that, near the governing center of the universe, there were a group of created beings that in our English language would be called as angels. The word angel simply means messenger because of the role of these people. And it speaks of their leader, a person called Lucifer, and says, you were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created until iniquity, that's rebellion, was found in you. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. This leader of this inhabited area, whose inhabitants were called angels, he was a brilliant intellectual and a tremendously charismatic leader. But his pride began to well up inside him as he looked at himself, and he said, I would like to exalt my throne above the stars of God. I want to be like the Most High. He had unbridled ambition, and so he began to be discontented. And he began to talk to those under him and say, hey, listen, put me in charge of everything. Let's overthrow the Creator and I'll give you a better deal. His laws are restricting us. I think we can do better than that. Come to my side and we'll do something. But be warned, I think he'll try to kill us if we really do attack, so be on your guard. We'll have to go with all our strength to rebel against him. And so the rebellion began to take place. The fact is, friends, that we can't live even here in Thames without laws, can we? If you found that a bridge was washed away, down at Tararoo or somewhere, and it said the road was closed, would you be foolish enough to drive through? I mean, I wouldn't dare, would you? You know that the law's there for your protection. And the traffic lights likewise. If you're going over the Kopu Bridge and you see the lights are turning red, you stop. You don't try to drive against the traffic that's coming in front of you. That's a law for your protection. And if the speed limit is 50 and you're in a hurry and you think, I've got to go 150, you better be careful. The law is there for other people's protection as well as your own. And here we have somebody who was rebelling against law. He didn't want law. He was irritated by it. And so he said, make me your leader. I'll abolish all law and you'll have happiness and freedom. That was his idea. And he was so persuasive that 1/3 of them sided with him. There was rebellion in which not one shot was fired and not one person was killed, but it was nevertheless a rebellion. Now it may be asked, why didn't the Supreme One destroy them? Well, friends, just suppose he had. Just suppose he had. Those who were faithful and loyal would still have said, they would have seen death for the first time, and they would have said, look, Lucifer was right. God is a tyrant. And from that moment onward, they would have served him with fear and foreboding rather than out of love. No, this was a deadly virus. This virus had to be given a chance to show itself for the ugliness that it really was, so that eventually, when the showdown did come later, it would be seen who really was in the right. Lucifer had put doubt in the minds of people, even if they didn't rebel. And that doubt had to be resolved before he could ever be executed. And so, he was cast out. He's today among the nations of the earth known as a dragon, a serpent, and the devil or Satan. And believe it, friends, this is real history. Every one of your ancestors believed it, right through from the early days. And that was a time when they didn't have evidence. Today we've got evidence that the book is true. But the fact is, all of the records, right through archaeology, show that the whole world, it's been a known fact that this event happened. And if you don't believe this happened, you're out of step with most of the world, right through most of history. And you better find out about this because it's true. And I'm quite willing to back this up with other evidence that you may not and won't have time for tonight. So they were cast out of their homeland. They were not destroyed. They were to be given a chance to prove who really was right. And he was cast out. And as soon as this had happened, Lucifer and his mob descended toward planet Earth. You and I, friends, have been involved in a drama that is still going on and which can only be explained by what I'm going to tell you. They came to planet Earth and they said, let's take over this planet. It was newly created. It was singing with life. Mankind had just been placed on this planet, just been created, and he'd been given dominion over everything on this planet. Today we abuse a lot of the things we've been given dominion over, but man was given the privilege of caring for this planet and everything on it. Beautiful world it was. Absolutely magnificent. But the fact that man was given dominion when he himself had been cast out of his own home infuriated Lucifer. And he was determined to get his revenge. He said, I'm going to hijack this planet and take it over and make this my first fighting ground and gradually fight back into the universe and get what I want. And this earth became, friends, the battleground between Lucifer and his creator. Now that first seance in which our first mother approached a most beautiful creature, a serpent, and saw it begin to speak, was this a ventriloquist act? Was this a change of appearance act, or was he simply using a serpent as a medium which appeared to talk? And he said, as God told you not to do this and that, you go ahead and do it, because he knows that as soon as you do that, you'll become like God, you'll know everything. And Eve was enchanted. She couldn't resist it. She put out her hand and she did what she was told. And trouble came into this planet. The human race had turned its back on its creator, and suffering took place. And we might wonder why there is suffering in this world today. You can't blame your creator. He loves you. However, he didn't make you and I like robots. He could have made us so that we'd get down on our knees and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, whether it was in our heart or not. And that would be not satisfying for you or me. I want to ask you a question. What is the most precious gift, or what's one of the most precious gifts you and I have been given? Free will. Freedom to choose for ourselves. Isn't that right? Men may try to force you to do things, but our Creator has given us freedom to choose. Because he wants our best happiness. And he knows that optimum happiness is only possible if we have the opportunity to choose. If we can't choose, we can't have happiness. We'd just be robots. Reminds me of a friend of mine over in Canada who was asking this very same question. And his neighbour put to him the question, when his daughter was a skier. He said to him, now, do you keep your daughter at home for her protection? Do you force her not to go skiing because she might break a leg or something? No. Well, what do you do? Well, I lay down some rules for her to follow, and I tell her how much I love her, and I tell her if she follows these rules, it will make it easier and safer for her. But then I let her go, and I let her choose, and if she hurts herself, then it's a learning experience. But I love her enough to let her do the choosing. Now, isn't that good advice? And that was how the Creator was. He let us do the choosing. We could choose either to love him, or we could choose to spit in his face. And we chose to spit in his face. Okay. And as a result of that, we cut off ourselves from the life giver, and death came into the human race. Death started working in the cells of our body. And today we are in that same situation where death is an enemy. They were absolutely heartbroken. However, they had yielded themselves to Lucifer's trick. Don't you know that when you offer yourselves to someone to obey him, as slaves, you are slaves to the one whom you obey? So dominion reverted into the hands of the hijacker. The man and woman who'd been put in charge of this world now actually handed over control of the world to the one that had hijacked it. That was their choice. And in archaeology, the most well-known representation of that event is this Sumerian plaque found in the area of Iraq, which shows it's called the temptation seal. It shows a man and a woman with a serpent there, and they're by the tree. And this was the universally remembered event. And right through the writings of the ancient nations, you see a theme running in what they were writing. And this is of their lost innocence, of their lost eternity, where they could live on and on, of their lost happiness, of the lost peace. All this had been lost, and all the nations were conscious of it. It was right from the beginning of their history. Doesn't matter where you went in the world. It was entrenched into the human memory, this event that took place. And the serpent became a symbol of Lucifer, or as he's often called, Satan. A person is a slave to whatever overpowers him, we're told. And Lucifer himself has made the claim that all kingdoms of the world are his, and that all people in the world are his now. Now, friends, this is interesting because the same claim is being made by the UFO people, that you and your children belong to them. The same claim that Lucifer and his crowd, who were cast out of their home, were saying to our ancestors, that's the same claim that the UFO people are now saying to us in the 21st century. You belong to us. We've taken over this planet. It's our planet. So the planet was hijacked. But something else was to come into the story, a rescue mission. When the Creator saw the plight of this planet Earth on the edge of the universe, his heart was moved with pity for the human race. And a promise was instantly made to our first parents that a rescuer was going to come. And fathers taught this to their children. When that rescue promise was made, Lucifer was infuriated further, and he determined to stop it happening. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Friends, if you're looking at the troubles in this world, you can't blame the one that created you. He loves you. You can blame the hijackers, because they want to bring this world down to ruin. Everything that happens in this world today in the way of disaster comes from the enemy. They plan it, they do it. And sometimes the Creator allows it simply because we need to learn a lesson. But he also gives warning, like the New Orleans warning. But we are living in a world today where there are powers, not physical. They can actually materialize, and we can take photographs of them. But they live in the spirit realm, and they've hijacked this planet. And they bring all the trouble and the suffering upon this planet. Now, I'm going to give you the alien spiritualist link tonight. And you're going to be astonished at this. It may be a shock to some of you. Actually, both space aliens, so-called, and seance spirits appear temporally as physical beings. That's one common point. Both space aliens and seance spirits appear in any number of disguises and shapes. Both space aliens and seance spirits can visibly change shape. They can look like beautiful girls, they can look like snarling dogs. As a matter of fact, I can give you reports of seances where a beautiful woman changed into a snarling dog as a spirit being, or the appearance of such. Both space aliens and seance spirits can appear as beings of light. This is an actual photograph. Both space aliens and seance spirits can pass through walls. Now, we can't do that. Our physical bodies limit us. So there you have it. They can appear very frequently as serpents or snakes. And sometimes people call them reptilians. Both space aliens and seance spirits say they are here to help us. Exactly as Lucifer said to our first parents, I'm here to help you. God's trying to keep something from you. I want to give it to you, so follow me. They say they're here to help us. Both space aliens and seance spirits tell us we can be as gods. Both space aliens and seance spirits reveal information known only to the hearer. They reveal family secrets that you only think you know. Both space aliens and seance spirits promote Lucifer, telling of his mission to save the world. They claim that Jesus is a deceiver. Both set dates for the end of the world which proved to be false. That's happened many times. Their message is the same. Both space aliens and seance spirits attempt to utilize human life forms and energy as a way to show themselves physically. Both space aliens and seance spirits often appear as reptiles, and we're informed that they are the spirits of demons that work miracles. They are lying spirits. They pose as visitors from other worlds, as extraterrestrials, and they also impersonate the dead. There are two things about the occult that attract people. One is they are promised that they will be told the future. A great deception. The second thing is they are told that they can communicate with their loved ones who have died. Another deception. And so people crowd into these places because they want those answers. They're longing for it. Modern Spiritism began around about 1848 with the Fox sisters over in the United States. These two girls began to hear rappings. And one girl, in playfulness, said, "Oh, cloven foot, do that again." And the rapping started on the wall again. Eventually the communication began to take place, and it became very, very real between the Fox family and these spirit beings, whoever they were. And very soon things began to fly up off the floor and move around the room. And then one day one of the girls asked her spirit contact if he would put his hand into, because her mother actually was very skeptical. She says, "Oh, that's a lot of nonsense. You girls are just imagining all this." So she asked this entity, "Will you please, if I bring you some hot wax, some melted wax, will you put your hand in it so I can prove to my mother that you actually did come and appear to me?" And that paraffin or wax glove convinced the mother, and they all began to have seances after that. Now we're warned that these spirits are the angels which kept not their first estate, but they were cast out of their heavenly habitation. A young man was sent off to the Korean War. His mother missed him. And then one day a message came to the door that he was missing, believed killed. As a matter of fact, a follow-up message said that the son was dead. She was distressed. A friend who was a church woman said to her, "Emily, you come along with me to church and we'll have a seance in the back. There's a seance going on in the back of the church. And you'll hopefully be able to bring up your dead son and talk with him." And the mother's broken heart began to respond to such a tempting invitation. She went along on Wednesday nights. And sure enough, a young man came up and he began to talk to her about the little secrets that he and his mother only knew. No one else, he thought, knew. And he began to laugh exactly in the same unique way that her son laughed. He moved his arms in the same way that her son had moved them. He reminded her of things that only she was supposed to know. And so she became obsessed with seeing her son every Wednesday night. She was hooked. And in these seances, people appeared. Here's a floating girl appearing in one of them. And they began to pull her in. One day, there was a knock on the door. And when the mother opened it, there was her son standing at the door. His mother was shocked. She said, "But listen, hey, we're not due to meet till Wednesday." And the son said, "What are you talking about, Mother? I've only just come. I didn't know that we were meeting any time. I just came back. I was a prisoner of war and I just got released and they flew me straight home." He was never dead at all. So who was this entity who came and appeared as her son, imitated all the characteristics of personality of her son, and knew the details of her son's and her life? Who was that entity who had been watching over and looking at their lives and was able to imitate and counterfeit until she could be pulled in. This happens so many times, friends. People often don't find out. You know, the book of Ecclesiastes says this very clearly, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that's done under the sun." That's telling us plainly, friends, that the dead cannot come and meet with people anymore. Not have any portion forever in anything that's done under the sun. "He that goeth down to the grave shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him any more." Now that's pretty clear, and that's in the intelligence report that we've been talking about. Okay. Now, we come to the second half of our program, and we come to the promise that had been made of a rescue. And this, you know, this story about Jesus and so on, you might think that's a lot of rot, a lot of nonsense, but friends, it's the most provable event of history, and I'm going to stick my neck out here, but I've got backing from some of the world's most eminent lawyers and attorneys on this, barristers. They say there's no event in the whole history of the world that can be proved so conclusively from the evidence that we now have as the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's the most provable event. It's more provable than Napoleon or any of these other characters in history. The death of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of Jesus Christ is now not just one of, but the only in its class. The amount of evidence existing for both those events outclasses anything else in history we have. Now that's a statement, isn't it? So you must accept, if you want facts, if you want history right, you can't deny the fact that Jesus Christ is an historical figure who did die on a cross, and I'm going to say it again, the legal evidence that would stand up in any court on earth. I can give you the evidence, you take it to any court, and if you lose the case, you come and tell me. You can't lose the case. The resurrection of Jesus is as provable in court as any event we know of, in fact more so. And there's good, solid evidence for it. And I'm now speaking as an archaeologist and a historian. So this entry of Jesus Christ into history is something unique. It was expected by races of people for thousands of years. The coming Messiah was expected, it was prophesied, the events of his life were written down before they even happened, and when he came, the whole world was waiting for him. But he didn't come and do the things that some of the people in his own country expected him to do, so they wanted to crucify him. But he came to offer himself as a sacrifice anyway. Now, we were in the death cell. We needed pardon. We needed escape. Somebody died instead of us. He took our place. That was the whole scenario. The law could not be changed. We had broken the law. Someone had to suffer the penalty, and he offered to come into this world and do it. Now, when he was in just east of the River Jordan, which is now the country of Jordan, he was out in the wilderness for about 6 weeks before he started his public work. And Lucifer appeared and met him in person and tried to divert him from the purpose that he'd come. Lucifer came actually disguised as one of the good guys. And he said to Jesus, "All these things I'll give you if you'll fall down and worship me." He offered him the whole kingdoms of the world. He said to Jesus, "The kingdoms of the world are mine. I'll give them to you if you'll just bow down to me." And Jesus said, "Get hence, Satan. For it's written, you'll worship the Lord God only and only serve him." Lucifer was out for revenge. He was out to divert the rescue effort. He got his enemies to take him to the cross and execute him. But Jesus came for that purpose. Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might destroy him that holds the power of death. That's the devil. He had to overcome him. He had to overcome the hijacker. But to do it, he had to die first. But when he rose from the dead, Lucifer knew that he was a defeated foe. Lucifer knew this was going to be the end for him eventually. Jesus had conquered death. The very thing that had conquered the human race by following Lucifer, Jesus had now conquered that. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea. For Lucifer, Satan, the devil, whoever, whatever you want to call him, is a real person, is come down unto you having great anger because he knows he has but a short time. And so he brings upon this earth all the suffering that he can. He hates what God has created. He hates the people. He hates you and me. And these disasters that we see coming, friends, insurance companies call them acts of God. For the most part, they're not. They're acts of Lucifer. And the real cause of our global troubles is not George Bush against Saddam Hussein. It's not rich against poor. It's not Jews against Arabs. It's not Christians against atheists. The real cause of the trouble in this world is the relentless ongoing war between Lucifer and Jesus. He's hijacked this planet. Jesus came in to rescue each one of us who would choose to be rescued. He's thrown out the ladder to us. But Lucifer's mob desire our destruction. And that's why we're seeing an increase in disasters right now as the end approaches. He's angry. He's furious. He wants to destroy this world so there'll be nothing left saving. Nothing left to save. That's his plan. And out in America, people were asking after the shooting of so many young innocent children by a fellow student, why didn't God stop the shooting? And very wisely someone said, how could he? He's not allowed in school anymore. That's the whole thing of Lucifer. Edge him out, then destroy everything. Very shrewd strategy. Now sometimes they will confess their identity in an encounter. Sometimes, more often, they'll deny who they are. It's an ongoing policy of deception. And here is what they're telling. In all the encounters of UFOs and also in seances, this is the message they're giving to the world. 1, man is evolving to a higher plane. 2, peace and unity is coming. 3, your future is in reincarnation. 4, there is no real death. 5, there is no real sin. 6, you have power within you to save yourself. And 7, the master is coming soon. Those are the messages that are being given worldwide by these entities. Now, John says, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are of God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. Be very, very careful here. 8, they preach morality, good manners and civic pride. That would make you think that they're on your side and that they've got the good of the world in their minds. 9, they talk Christian ideas and words and an ethical Jesus. Oh yes, they do. 10, they reject the idea, however, of a rescuer from sin. Friends, these entities are dangerous. As we learned earlier, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought and his angels. And the great dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, was cast out, who deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out to the earth. There's a deception. The whole world. He deceives them that dwell on the earth, we are told in the intelligence report. And no marvel, for Satan himself can transform himself into an angel of light. These are the spirits of devils working miracles. And they have their agents on earth also. In fact, I have been able to identify one of them on television through associates who have been working behind the scenes. Friends, there's more links between space aliens and Sion spirits. More space alien and Sion spirit links. Firstly, their effect on the human contactee is the same. The human contactee suffers the same medical and emotional symptoms, can end up being possessed. The entities are the same. The result is the same. Now, I'm coming to the most amazing fact in this whole presentation. The UFO organisations, most of them are New Age, others are not, have been doing investigations into abductions. The abduction thing has been very, very controversial. Is it possible to halt an alien abduction? Here's the most amazing discovery concerning such things. There is a group of human beings which by and large is notably exempt. Now this fact was discovered by the Florida-based trained field investigators of CE4 who were researchers for MUFON. Now MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network. It's unquestionably the most respected clearinghouse in the world for UFO reports. One of these men was a believer in God. The other was more of a New Age. In fact, he was strongly into the New Age. But the one who believed in God, that's just as far as it went. He was nothing more than that. These men were very neutral when it came to their beliefs. And what they were to find, friends, was going to startle them, both of them. The report now comes. Neither of us had ever even considered a spiritual origin of the phenomenon. We had a hunch we were onto something. They had been trying to explain abductions by physical answers. And then they began to realise that as the evidence came in and they sifted through it, a physical answer was not enough. There was something beyond that was involved. They went through all the different religions of the world and they began to study the people who had been abducted from all of those religions and non-religions. And they found that people from all those groups had been abducted by these so-called aliens. They studied more case histories. And there emerged a puzzling trend. It had to do with a group who were Christians. And the researchers now ran into another puzzle. They found that some Christians were abducted and some were left alone. And this was the only group they studied of all the religions or non-religions. The only group in the whole world that were left alone was a certain class of Christians. And the question arose, why is it true that this group is not being abducted? Well, further investigation turned up confirmation that Christians fell into two classes. Did you know there are two classes of Christians in the world? There's the one, the talk Christians, who believe in Christian ideals but do not live them. And some of this group claim abduction. Then there are the walk the talk Christians who give their lives over to follow Jesus in their daily life, to live out the principles. And this group is notably exempt from abductions. This second class of Christians are left alone by the abductors. It's as though the aliens tend to avoid this group. Tell you the story of one gentleman. He was getting ready for bed one night And then he saw a glow coming in through the window. He went to his bedroom window and he looked out over the field and the forest beyond, and he could see these strange lights. He thought, well, maybe it's just military aircraft or something. But then the dogs began barking all through the neighbourhood. He realised there was something strange going on here. He got into bed, tried to sleep, and then a misty glow came in through the window into his room. His wife remained asleep. This man suddenly felt himself being levitated out of his bed into the air. And then he felt it was like somebody was pushing a pole, and he was terrified. He couldn't stop what was going on. And then the thought crossed into his mind, Jesus, Jesus, help me! And he's not sure whether he said it out loud or whether it was forced through his mind. But it was enough to deter the abductor that was doing something to him. He fell back on his bed, and his wife woke up with a start and says, what are you jumping up and down in the bed for? He reported this to the authorities, and MUFON, the CE4 team, studied the case. They reported it to the media. And immediately it was broadcast through the media. They had never heard of this happening before, where an abduction had begun and then been stopped. As soon as the report was publicised, more reports began to come in from all over the country. People were reporting that they had been able to stop an abduction by calling the name of Jesus Christ. There was something in that name that could stop an alien attack. Now this has been recorded in the UFO records, friends, and these people are not Christians, but they have recorded it because they know it to be true. Is it true that there's a battle going on here and there are two great enemies and one hates the other? Well, actually, it's the Lucifer one that's doing the hating. Is it true also that there's a God who cares for you and that he offers you ultimate rescue from not only abductions and other things, but even from the curse of death? Death is a curse, friends. It snatches loved ones from us relentlessly. But not only has he conquered death, he can give you victory in your life now. His intelligence report contains survival instructions. And if you haven't been reading it, I can help you with that. You can trust him. He made you. He loves you. We're approaching the final showdown. Jesus came the first time to suffer in place of us. And he suffered the most cruel humiliation and torture and death that could ever be inflicted upon a person. That was the purpose of his first coming. The second coming, he's returning as King of Kings and Lord of Lords to interrupt human history and to take over and to bind the enemy. And you can rest assured that there's a day coming, a much better day. He promises, I will destroy you, O covering cherub. That's what Lucifer was before he was cast out. Therefore I will bring forth fire from the midst of you, and it shall devour you and shall bring you to ashes upon the earth. That's the fate of Satan or Lucifer. It's coming. And this world will be remade a beautiful new world where there'll be no more crime, suffering or death. Meanwhile, he wants you to get to know him because he's the best friend you'll ever have. And he is preparing something for you, friends. He's preparing a world that you will want to live in forever. And you won't have to worry about sickness or pain or death or loneliness or heartache or rejection or any of those things. You won't have to lock your door of your house or your car. He's coming. He's the victor. And even now his name is powerful, as we just showed you. It's a powerful name. You can call on it to get rid of habits. If drugs are worrying you, you can call on him and he can help you. He can set you free. If you're chained with anything at all that is ruining your life and causing you anguish, he can get you through that. He can make you a wonderful victor. Who'd like to be a victor in their lives in all things? Wouldn't you? Put up your hand if you would. You know, I haven't done this before, but with your permission, I'd like to just do it now for a moment. I'd like to ask our Creator to make every one of you a victor. Do you mind? Okay. Father, you know that for a long time I didn't want you, but you chased me. Your love it was that won me. And then I went looking for the evidence. You showed me the evidence, you gave it to me. I'm just trying to share it with these dear folk here in Thames. Some of this wonderful evidence. I want them to know also that you care about them, that you want to make them victors. I mean, you don't want anyone to be a failure. You want everyone to be victorious. I do ask, please, that you'll help every person here tonight, and if anyone is a little bit nervous about talking to you, that in their own home they'll just lift up their voice to you and say, God, if you've got all that power, and if you do care for me, would you give me victory over this problem? I know you'll help them. I'm just asking you now, look at each person, you know who they are. Please help them. And I thank you. In the precious name of Jesus. Amen. But others genuinely believe that they've had experiences. A number of these people are interviewed and there are organisations set up especially to investigate such things. And these genuine ones do need some explaining. Here is a UFO photographed over Mexico City some time ago. Here's another one over Yugoslavia. And I'm going to tell you tonight, friends, that the explanations are so different that our investigation is going to have to take us only to the truth. We're going to have to sift out the error from the truth, because it can be done. There are those who believe that these phenomena come from outer space. There are others who believe that UFOs are a government technology that is not being revealed and that there are cover-ups going on. There are others who claim that UFOs come from a civilization inside a hollow earth, that the earth is hollow, that there are civilizations under the earth and they come out. There are others who believe that these are angels appearing. And there are others who believe that the UFO phenomenon is a hangover from the days in the past when there was a high technology. And we dealt with the high technology in our first program, Dead Men's Secrets. That there was a great technology in the past, and that there are still remnants of that somewhere that are appearing to modern people somehow, and that is the explanation. So you'll see there's a lot of different ideas about this. People who claim to be abducted are not few and far between. And these include the most responsible and intelligent and respected people in their communities. Something has happened to them. But whatever that is what we're going to get at tonight. Here we have somebody, some entities that I'm suggesting have questionable origins. And you'll understand that as we go further. The earliest encounters had the UFO people stating that they had come from planets like Venus and other planets of our solar system. That was very, very common before our space program got underway. Because their claims could not be checked, of course. As soon as our space program began to probe through the solar system, these UFO entities began to change their story and say they came from galaxies further away that could not be checked on. They no longer said that they came from planets in our solar system, at least not so often. Their story was changed. They came from other galaxies like the Pleiades and so on. One thing that UFO investigators have discovered, friends, and are very open about is this, that these entities, whoever they are, cannot be trusted to tell the truth. And the question arises, do they have something to hide? Yes, they have a clear teaching agenda as well. They come to promote certain things and to attack other things. For example, they promote the New Age movement, they attack Christianity, and they put down Jesus Christ and they put up Lucifer. It's very interesting. They have a clear mind to change the belief of people. I guess unless we know where we're headed and we follow the directions, we're going to end up, friends, in the most unlikely and unexpected places, as that cartoonist put. We need to know where we are and we need to know what's out there. Now, it is true, friends, that what we see around us is not all that there is. One of the most proven facts of modern life is that there are entities that are not human. And the suggestion has been made by investigators that these are coming from a parallel existence, a non-physical existence, a spirit existence, if you like, another dimension other than the physical dimension in which we live. And here you are looking at actual photographs. These are genuine photographs of entities that suddenly appear and materialize in seances. There are 3 appearing around that man, that gentleman. He's physical, as are the people. And yet entities appear and are seen. Now, an interesting thing about the UFO phenomenon is that UFOs can defy all the laws of physics as we know them. A UFO can change direction at a fast speed, 120 degrees. A UFO can change shape. A UFO can actually materialize and dematerialize. 2 UFOs can come together and become one physical item. Now, this is something that we cannot cause to happen in the physical world. They're not just crackpots. Many of them have a strange feeling in their hearts and their bodies, and they don't know what's causing it. And then suddenly they suggest that they go to a hypnotherapist, and they then blurt out a story as though it had just freshly happened to them, something they were not conscious of because their mind had closed it off. And men and women claim these abductions. They claim to have had terrifying experiences with aliens. And most strange reports come out of their stories. Now, it's very interesting that the effect of these so-called encounters, if that's the right word, are both physical and mental. The physical effects include, in a large number of cases, if not the majority of cases, a deteriorating physical health after the event. And people actually dying of diseases that surgeons and the medical profession have not yet been able to identify. Mentally and emotionally, they become controlled. by this imagined or real force. And they become possessed, as it were. And they cannot be the same person again after they've gone through it. Many of them actually have broken marriages after this. They report a great interest in the occult that they never had before. And the situation is real when you see the people themselves. I have to admit, friends, that tonight there's going to be a few shocks coming from different directions, depending upon what you know and what you don't know. But you should find it interesting at least. And what I have to reveal to you is all factual. There's going to be no speculations, no opinions in this. We're going to give you facts. And I think you'll be astonished at some of the things that come out. About 20 million Americans claim that they have seen UFOs. The word UFO is short for unidentified flying object. As a matter of fact, 4 million people and more, probably 4.5 million people in America, claim to have been abducted by space aliens or whatever they are. It's a lot of people. Now, 95% of the stories that come prove to be something else, like a weather balloon or some kind of natural lights in the sky or various other things, and they can be explained as man-made or natural phenomena, about 95% of them. Then there are others that are just made up stories. People get onto the bandwagon and start making up stories to draw attention to themselves, and some of them are outright lies.